The Force is old and full of shadows.
Consciousness arrives like a system reboot. Not gradually, not gently. One moment there is nothing, the absolute nothing that exists between death and whatever comes after, and then there is everything at once. The scratch of rough fabric against unfamiliar skin, the low mechanical hum of recycled air, the smell of industrial solvent and human sweat baked into metal for years without remedy. Anakin Skywalker opens eyes that are not his. The bunk above him is 8 centimeters from his face. Durasteel. Gray. A stress fracture runs diagonally across the underside, where someone in some prior life must have slammed something into it with considerable force. He stares at that fracture for 3 full seconds before his mind, still sorting, still cataloging, understands what he is looking at. A bunk. A barracks bunk. He is lying on his back. He is breathing without a respirator. The realization does not come as relief. It comes as a cold diagnostic. His lungs expand and contract without mechanical assistance. No vocoder filters the sound. When he exhales, the air is warm and wet, and completely disturbingly human. He has not heard his own unmediated breath since he was 19 years old on a surgical table on Coruscant. And the sound of it now, soft, unremarkable, alive, does something to the region of his chest that he does not have immediate language for. He files it. Later, the barracks are dark. Red emergency lighting runs along the floor strips, casting everything in the color of low alert status. Around him, stacked 6 bunks high in 2 facing rows, men sleep. He can hear them, the irregular rhythms of 40 bodies in various stages of exhaustion. Someone 2 rows down is grinding his teeth. Someone else is running a fever. The Force registers it as a faint orange warmth in the dark, a small fire in a cold room. Passive sensing only. He clamps down on it immediately, tightening his awareness back to the boundaries of his own skin. He does not yet know this body. That is the priority. He sits up slowly. The movement feels wrong in 14 small ways. The center of gravity is off, the reach of his arms is shorter than memory insists it should be, and his left knee produces a soft pop of protestation that Anakin Skywalker's original body never did. He is not tall. He is not built for the kind of mass he carried through 2 decades of dark-side amplification. He raises his right hand in the red-tinged dark and looks at it. 5 fingers, all present, all original, flesh to the wrist and beyond. 2 hands. He has 2 human hands. He closes the right one into a fist, opens it. The tendons move without the sensation of durasteel cable beneath synth skin. No phantom signals, no feedback lag, no hiss of hydraulic compensation. Just a hand, just a man's ordinary hand, doing what hands do. He sets it back on his knee and breathes. The barracks comes into focus in increments. Standard Imperial design, function over everything, comfort considered an operational liability. The footlockers at the base of each bunk stack are numbered, not named. The numbers run sequentially, TK871 through TK920. He finds his own without looking for it. 3rd bunk, middle stack, 2nd row from the left. The number stamped into the durasteel frame reads TK884. That is who he is now. He files that too. He swings his legs over the side of the bunk and drops to the floor, landing with a careful quietness born from 23 years of moving through Imperial corridors without creating sound. The muscle memory is his. The muscles are not. His landing is soft. His knees register the impact with a mild complaint that suggests this body is not accustomed to being careful. The footlocker opens on a palm press. Inside, 1 set of undershirt and lower thermal layer, folded with mechanical precision. 1 pair of grip-soled boots. Standard nutrient supplement pack. Sealed. And below all of it, in its designated recess, the armor. White plastoid over black body glove. 18 individual pieces, each with a specific donning sequence drummed into every trooper through 6 weeks of induction. He knows the sequence. He has watched it performed thousands of times by men he never thought of as men. He lifts the helmet last. He holds it in both hands and looks at it. The visor is black and convex and reflects nothing in the red emergency lighting. It has no expression. It will never have an expression. That is the point. He understands this with a clarity he did not have as Vader, when Stormtroopers were simply furniture, tools and armor, arranged and deployed, and occasionally replaced. He understands it now, because the armor is in his hands, and the helmet is 6 centimeters from his face, and in 40 minutes he will put it on and become indistinguishable from the 49 other men in this room. That is also the point. He puts the helmet on. The mess hall operates at precisely 0530. Anakin takes a seat at the end of a long table, tray in hand, and does not speak. Around him, 40 men in varying states of mourning perform the same ritual: sit, eat, do not make eye contact with the officer standing at the far wall. The food is not food in any meaningful sense. It is caloric delivery in the form of gray protein paste and a vitamin supplement pressed into the shape of a square. He eats it. His body, Fendero's body, he has read the designation in the Foot Locker Manifest. Fendero, Corellia, age 34, enlistment voluntary. His body is hungry. He registers the hunger as an operational variable and addresses it without sentiment. Around him, fragments of low conversation move under the noise floor of the ventilation system. He listens without appearing to listen. This, too, is an old skill. Range scores posted. Voss is making the bottom 5 run drills during rest period. Again, Korath missed 3 shots on the moving target. 3. A pause. The mechanical sound of plastoid shifting as someone adjusts their sleeve. Transfer requests went through for Sector 4. Heard 2 squads are moving to hangar duty. Hangar duty. Anakin does not move. He takes a measured bite of gray protein paste and chews it, and does not allow any change in his body language. Because there is an ISB agent in this room, he felt her the moment he walked in. A particular quality of attention that he has spent 2 decades recognizing, and ISB agents are specifically trained to watch for physical responses to operationally significant words. But the thought runs its full circuit regardless. Hangar duty, hangar access, the Millennium Falcon will arrive in 7 days. He has been doing the arithmetic since the moment he understood where he was, and the arithmetic is ruthless. 7 days to engineer a transfer. Establish a pattern of behavior that justifies hangar assignment, and position himself in proximity to docking bay 327, without triggering a single loyalty flag. 7 days is tight. 7 days is not impossible. He finishes the protein paste, he drinks the water. He sets his tray in the return slot with the exact degree of care that a man with nothing to prove would use, and he walks out of the mess hall with 40 other white-armored bodies moving in the same direction. He is TK-884. He has a patrol assignment on Level 6, Subsector 7. He has a sergeant named Voss who will address him by number and expect a response within 2 seconds, and will file a report if the response takes 3. He has 7 days. He has 2 hands. He falls into formation, and the barracks corridor swallows him whole, and he does not look like a man who once commanded an empire. He looks like every other faceless soldier in a white shell, moving in a line going nowhere that matters. That is exactly what he needs. The patrol route is a rectangle. Anakin knows this before Sergeant Voss briefs it. He has walked every corridor on this station. Not in this body, not in this life, but the architectural memory is his, and it does not require a new nervous system to access. Level 6, Subsector 7 is a secondary maintenance ring. 300 meters of identical gray corridor, interrupted at regular intervals by sealed equipment bays and ventilation junctions. The ceiling runs 2.4 meters overhead. The floor is non-slip durasteel plate. The lighting is functional white with no variation for time of day, because time of day is an organic preference, and the Empire has no interest in organic preferences. He walks it anyway, because TK-884 does not know this route yet. Voss leads the first circuit personally. He is a compact man. Anakin reads this from the way he moves inside his armor, the slight forward lean of someone who learned to walk in smaller spaces than these. And he briefs the route the way someone briefs a route they have briefed 400 times before, without inflection, without eye contact, without any indication that the human beings following him are anything other than equipment being oriented to a task. Junction Alpha to Junction Delta is your primary. 4 minutes at standard pace. You do not stop at the equipment bays unless the bay indicator reads red. If it reads red, you call it in. You do not open it yourself. You do not investigate unusual sounds without backup. You do not deviate from the rectangle for any reason that is not a direct order or an active security event. Questions. It is not phrased as a question. No one speaks. Voss turns and walks. They follow. Anakin falls into the middle of the formation, not the front, which draws observation, not the back, which draws suspicion. The middle is where the unremarkable go. He has spent 2 days cataloging the shape of unremarkable and wearing it like a second skin over the borrowed one. He matches pace with TK-8901 on his left and TK-903 on his right. He holds his E11 at the prescribed carry angle. He does not look at the walls. He looks at Voss. The sergeant's behavioral profile assembles itself in layers over the first circuit. Voss is not cruel in the theatrical sense, not the kind of Imperial NCO who performs authority for the pleasure of it. He is something more functional and therefore more dangerous, a man who has genuinely internalized the system. He believes the rectangle matters. He believes the bay indicators matter. He believes that 4 minutes at standard pace is the correct interval because command determined it was the correct interval, and the full weight of his professional identity rests on that determination being correct. Men like Voss are not enemies. They are environmental hazards. At Junction Beta, Voss stops without announcement and turns to face the formation. TK-884. Sir, the voice that comes out of the vocoder is not Anakin's voice. It is lower with a Corellian flatness to the vowels, and hearing it is briefly disorienting in the way that all of this body's surprises are disorienting. Not painful, just wrong, like a word in a language you know used in a context you don't recognize. Range scores were posted this morning. You pulled a 91 on the moving target drill. Sir, the squad average is 83. A pause, not approving, assessing. Where did you qualify Anakin accesses Fendero's induction file from memory? Karita, sir. Advanced infantry track. Voss looks at him for a moment that runs 2 seconds longer than the question requires. The helmet reveals nothing. That is the design. But Anakin reads the quality of attention underneath it the way he has always read people. Not through the Force, not now. Just through the accumulated knowledge of 2 decades spent in rooms where reading the person in front of you was the difference between operational success and a knife between the shoulder blades. Voss is noting him, filing him. Not with suspicion yet, with the particular alertness of a sergeant who has just identified someone in his squad who might be more than standard issue. This is a problem and an opportunity simultaneously. Stay at the front of the formation for the second circuit, Voss says, and turns and walks. Anakin moves to the front. He does not allow the adjustment in his posture that his instincts want to make. The straightening, the command stance, the physical grammar of a man accustomed to walking at the front of formations that numbered in the thousands. He keeps Fendero's slightly forward lean. He keeps the carry angle. He walks the rectangle. The ISB agent is TK-897. Anakin identifies her on the third circuit, 40 minutes into the rotation. Not through active force use, through pattern recognition. She walks at a consistent distance from whoever is speaking. Her helmet tracks conversation rather than the corridor. When Voss issues a correction to TK-912 for a bay indicator log error, her body language does not register the irritation that runs through the rest of the squad in a subtle wave of shifted weight and adjusted grips. She is not irritated because she is not invested in TK-912's error. She is recording it. She is good at this. The performance of average is technically proficient. She is not as good at it as Anakin is. He files her designation, he files her tell, a slight delay, perhaps half a second, between receiving information and processing it, during which her head orientation remains fixed while her attention moves. He will not make eye contact with her. He will not avoid it. He will treat her with the precise quality of incurious indifference that he extends to every other member of this squad, because the fastest way to draw ISB attention is to demonstrate awareness of ISB presence. The rectangle continues. At Junction Delta, a sound comes from behind the sealed door of Equipment Bay 7. It is a small sound, metallic. The kind of sound a maintenance droid makes when it shifts position in a confined space, or the kind of sound a loose panel makes when the station's internal pressure differentials create micro-vibrations in the walls. The corridor produces dozens of sounds like this every hour. The squad keeps walking. Anakin's passive force awareness registers it as nothing. No living presence behind the door, no threat signature, no emotional resonance. Empty bay, mechanical cause. But TK-891 slows. It is a fractional deceleration, barely perceptible, the kind of hesitation that a man produces when his nervous system has registered a stimulus his training is telling him to ignore. Anakin clocks it in his peripheral vision without turning his head. TK-891 keeps walking. The hesitation passes. The formation completes the turn at Junction Delta and begins the leg back toward Junction Alpha. Anakin runs the calculation. TK-891 is not ISB. The hesitation was genuine. A small animal response from a man whose survival instincts are slightly better calibrated than his conditioning would prefer. That is not disloyalty. That is biology. But ISB agents are specifically trained to document behavioral anomalies, and a fractional deceleration at an equipment bay. On the same day, a range score of 91 gets posted in a squad. Averaging 83 creates a composite picture that Anakin does not want anyone assembling. He needs TK-891 to be boring. More precisely, he needs TK-891 to be more boring than TK-884. At Junction Alpha, the formation pauses for a water interval. Helmets do not come off in operational areas. There is a hydration port in the lower left jaw section, a straw and valve assembly that delivers measured amounts. Anakin uses it. Around him, the squad performs the same motion in near synchrony, 40 white helmets tilting at the same angle. He uses the interval to speak. Not to TK-891 directly. That would create exactly the associative data point he is trying to avoid. He speaks at the general volume of a man making an observation to no one in particular, pitched to carry the 2 meters to TK-891's position without appearing directed. Bay 7's pressure seal is loose. You can hear it on every third pass. A beat. TK-891's helmet does not move. But the quality of tension in his posture, the specific held breath quality of a man who has just been offered an explanation he very much wanted, releases by a degree that Anakin measures and files. Maintenance should log it. TK-891 says, flat, bureaucratic, exactly right. Probably already have, Anakin says, and drinks his water. The interval ends. The rectangle begins again. Voss does not look back. TK-897's helmet tracks forward. The squad moves. Anakin walks the corridor that he knows better than he knows this body, in a face that no one will remember, performing the precise mathematics of survival. 4 minutes at standard pace. He has 6 days left. The transfer request takes 4 days to engineer. Anakin does not submit it himself. That is the first principle. Nothing that originates from TK-884 can appear to originate from TK-884. The Empire is a bureaucracy before it is anything else. And bureaucracies do not respond to individual initiative. They respond to systemic need, dressed in the language of efficiency. So he does not ask for a transfer. He creates the conditions under which a transfer becomes the obvious administrative solution to a problem that command already has. The problem is Detention Block AA-23. 2 guards on the cell block rotation have been flagged for performance review in the last 6 days. 1 for a logging error on the IT-0 droid bay access record. 1 for a shift overlap discrepancy that created a 4-minute window of substandard coverage on the cell row. Neither flag is serious. Both flags exist because Anakin identified the procedural vulnerabilities they represent and ensured they were visible to the right reporting channels, through methods that left no fingerprints. He did not fabricate the errors. He simply made certain that errors which already existed were not buried in the routine noise of a station running at full operational capacity in the week before its primary weapons test. The Death Star is preparing to fire on Alderaan in 3 days. He knows this. He holds it at distance, the way you hold something that will burn you if you grip it. Present acknowledged, not yet actionable. Alderaan is 2 billion people. He has the architectural memory of this station and the tactical genius of 23 years in Imperial service, and 2 hands that are not currently attached to a lightsaber or a command console or anything that could stop a super laser from firing. He files it. He walks the rectangle. He waits. The transfer order comes through Voss at 0600 on the 5th day. Voss reads it from a datapad with the expression of a man who has been told his equipment is being redistributed. Not pleased, not angry, professionally neutral in the way that professional neutrality is itself a form of dissatisfaction. TK-884, temporary reassignment, detention block AA-23, supplementary rotation, effective today, 0800. You'll carry standard corridor assignment concurrently. This is additional duty, not replacement. Report to Lieutenant Kalen at the block entry gate. Sir, Anakin says. Voss looks at him for the same 2 seconds longer interval he used at Junction Beta on the first day. The assessment has not changed in character, only in specificity. Voss has been watching TK-884 for 5 days, and what he has assembled is a picture of a trooper who is competent without being remarkable, efficient without being ambitious, and socially present at exactly the level that avoids both isolation and fraternization flags. It is a portrait of someone who does not exist. Voss hands him the transfer chit and says nothing further. Anakin takes it and goes. Lieutenant Kalen is 26 years old and afraid of his own posting. Anakin reads this in the first 30 seconds. Not force, just observation. Kalen holds his rank insignia like a man who is aware that the people above him know things he doesn't, and the people below him know it too. The detention block is not a prestigious assignment. It is where you put officers who are technically proficient and personally unimpressive. And Kalen has clearly been aware of this assessment of himself for long enough that it has reorganized his entire behavioral presentation around preemptive apology. He briefs Anakin on the cell block with the energy of a man who has given this briefing many times and found it unrewarding each time. Supplementary rotation covers the transition between first and second shift, 075 to 0820. You'll stand the south corridor post. The cells on the south row are currently unoccupied. Standard monitoring, standard log intervals, no deviation from post without officer authorization. He pauses. There's a prisoner scheduled for arrival within the next 48 hours. High value, senator level. All protocol adjustments will be briefed at that time. He doesn't say Leia Organa's name. He doesn't need to. Understood, sir, Anakin says. Kalen nods and retreats to the control hub with the posture of a man who is relieved to stop being looked at. Anakin takes his post. The south corridor is exactly as the architectural memory describes it, 30 cells in a horseshoe. Cell 2187 at the far end. The trash compactor access chute behind panel C7 on the east wall, currently sealed and logged as last accessed 11 days prior for routine waste cycle maintenance. The IT-0 bay door closed. The control hub, visible through the transperisthial partition, staffed by 2 officers and 3 troopers who move with the low-energy rhythm of people who have been watching empty cells for a long time. He stands his post. He watches the empty cells. He has been standing there for 9 minutes when he becomes aware that he is being watched. Not by the officers in the hub, not by the ISB. TK-897 is not on this rotation, and he has not detected her presence in this sector. This is something else, something at the edge of his passive awareness, low and careful, like a candle flame being deliberately cupped against a wind. A force sensitive, actively suppressing their signature. Not Vader. Vader's presence is a gravitational event, a dark side mass that warps the force around it the way a star warps space. This is quieter, older, something that has been hiding for a long time and has become very skilled at it. The occupied cell is at the north end, cell 2099. It is not on his corridor. He has no line of sight to it, no access, no operational reason to be within 15 meters of it. He knows this. He also knows the voice when it comes. It does not come as sound. It comes as the force equivalent of a held breath released. A single directed pulse of recognition, stripped of content, stripped of identity, just the bare fact of acknowledgement. Something in the North Corridor felt him. Something in the North Corridor knew, in the way that only force sensitives know each other, that TK-884 is not what TK-884 appears to be. Anakin does not move. He stands at his post with his E11 at carry angle and his helmet forward, and his body performing the complete physical grammar of a bored stormtrooper counting minutes. And every cell in this borrowed body is screaming the name of the man in that cell, Obi-Wan Kenobi. He is here. He is alive. He is on the Death Star. The arithmetic reorganizes instantly, the way a tactical display reorganizes when new intelligence arrives, every line of calculation shifting to accommodate the new variable. Anakin runs it backward from the fact, looking for the shape of how. Obi-Wan would have known about Leia's capture, through the Force, through Alliance channels, through the particular quality of attention a man in hiding pays to anything that moves the galaxy toward the thing he has been waiting 20 years for. He would not have waited for a rescue to be organized. He would have come alone, quietly, the way Obi-Wan has always done the things that matter most, without announcement, without backup, trusting the Force to supply what preparation could not. He came for Leia. He was intercepted before he reached her. And now he is in a cell on the North Corridor, suppressing his signature with the discipline of a man who has been doing exactly this for 2 decades, and the station does not know what it is holding. Obi-Wan, who in the sequence Anakin remembers walked out of this station alive, who disabled the tractor beam and died in the hangar corridor leading to Docking Bay 327, so that Luke could reach the ship, is here, already, in a cell, before the Falcon has arrived. Something has changed. The sequence has already diverged at a point earlier than Anakin planned for. The pulse comes again. Still no content. Just, I know you are there. Anakin's response is the Force equivalent of closed shutters. Not rejection, acknowledgement of receipt, and the clear signal that this is not the place, not the time, not the body, and that whatever Obi-Wan thinks he is sensing, he is going to have to trust that it is not a threat, and leave it unresolved. A long moment. Then the presence in cell 2099 dims back to its careful candle flame suppression, and the North Corridor is just a North Corridor again. Anakin exhales inside his helmet. No one hears it. His shift ends at 0820. He logs his post-report, South Corridor, all clear, no incidents, and hands off to the second rotation and walks out through the blast door and into the turbolift corridor. The door seals behind him. He has 2 days. He has one former master in a detention cell on the wrong side of a blast door. He has a princess arriving tomorrow, and a planet dying the day after that, and a son somewhere on the station that he is not going to think about right now, because thinking about it will do something to his chest that he cannot afford to have happen. Inside a helmet, in an Imperial corridor. He presses the turbolift call. The car arrives. He steps in. The doors close. 5 days of careful architecture, and the building has just grown 3 new floors that weren't in the original plans. He rides the turbolift up and begins again from the start. Leia Organa arrives on the Death Star at 1400 hours. Anakin is not there to see it. He is walking the rectangle on level 6, subsector 7 4 minutes at standard pace, E11 at carry angle, performing the complete physical grammar of a man whose world ends at junction delta. But he feels the shift, not force, just the station itself, the way a large vessel changes its internal rhythm when something significant has docked. The foot traffic in the corridors increases by a measurable degree. Officers move with the particular velocity of people who have received new orders and are pretending the orders are routine. She is here. The countdown has begun. He has spent the last 18 hours doing 2 things simultaneously: maintaining the precise behavioral profile of TK-884 without deviation and rebuilding every tactical calculation from the foundation up. The original sequence runs in the back of his mind like a parallel process. Han and Luke arrive. They bluff their way to the detention level using armor pulled from troopers intercepted near the Falcon's docking bay. Likely TK-421 among them, based on the duty roster gap that will open when the hangar guard post goes uncovered, though the arithmetic of designation reassignment in this iteration may place the vulnerability elsewhere. They reach Leia, the firefight, the trash compactor, the tractor beam, the escape. He is not in that sequence. He was never in that sequence. He is a supplementary variable that the original timeline did not account for, running parallel to events that are already in motion, and the question is not how to replace the sequence, but how to protect it. Obi-Wan cannot die in the hangar corridor this time. That is the only variable that matters. The opportunity arrives at 0340 on the following morning, in the shape of a scheduling error. The detention block AA-23 supplementary rotation has been restructured to accommodate increased security around Leia's cell. The shift reorganization creates a coverage overlap on the South Corridor between 0340 and 0410, a 30-minute window during which TK-884 is logged as on post, but is not, in practical terms, being directly observed by any officer in the hub. Anakin identified this window 14 hours ago. He has been waiting for it with the patience of a man who learned patience from a Jedi Master and then spent 20 years refining it under a Sith Lord. At 0342, he moves. Not far. Not dramatically. He steps 6 meters south of his post position to a wall panel he identified on his first shift, a secondary data routing junction. Standard Imperial infrastructure, accessible with a maintenance override that requires a code he does not have but does not need, because the panel's locking mechanism has a manufacturing defect that causes it to cycle open when subjected to a specific pressure sequence applied to the lower left corner. He found the defect through observation. It has nothing to do with the Force. He applies the pressure sequence. The panel opens. Inside, a narrow access corridor running parallel to the main cell block, maintenance only. Not monitored by the hub cameras. The cameras cover the cell row and the entry gate, not the maintenance infrastructure. He is inside, and the panel is closed behind him in 11 seconds. He moves through the access corridor to the north end junction. The force-sensitive presence in cell 2099 is immediately perceptible here, no longer suppressed. Perhaps because Obi-Wan has been holding the suppression for so many hours that he has allowed it to lapse in the small hours of the station's artificial night. The candle flame is more visible in the dark. Anakin puts his hand flat against the maintenance wall and sends the same signal he sent yesterday. Closed shutters. Not a threat. And then, because there is no time for subtlety and no mechanism for subtlety in this situation, a second signal beneath it. Not words. The Force does not carry words at this level of use. Not without active projection, which this body cannot sustain. But it carries intent, and the intent he sends is directional. Not here. Not yet. The hangar. A long silence from the other side of the wall. Then Obi-Wan's presence in cell 2099 does something that Anakin did not anticipate. It asks a question. Not in language, in the Force equivalent of a turned face. A lifted query, the shape of who. Anakin's answer is the only honest one he has. He lets the Force carry what it carries when he is not controlling it. He does not send a name. He does not send an image. He sends the thing that exists underneath both of those. The specific texture of a relationship that has no equivalent in the galaxy, worn down to its essential elements by decades of distance and grief, and the knowledge of exactly how much was broken and exactly what it cost. The silence on the other side lasts 4 full seconds. Then Obi-Wan Kenobi's presence does something Anakin has not felt in 23 years. It steadies, not surprise, beyond surprise, through it, out the other side. It steadies into the particular quality of a man who has been carrying a weight alone, for so long that the arrival of another set of hands does not feel like relief, so much as confirmation of something he almost stopped believing. He knew, or he hoped, or there is no difference between those two things when you have been waiting long enough. Anakin withdraws his hand from the wall. He moves back through the access corridor, closes the panel behind him, and returns to his post position at 0349. His log shows continuous south corridor coverage. He stands the rest of his shift and does not think about what just happened. The Millennium Falcon arrives at 11:17. He feels it before the station's internal alert systems process it. A disturbance in the Force, the size and shape of Han Solo's aggressive piloting. The Falcon dropping out of hyperspace inside the debris field and riding the tractor beam in like a man who has decided that if he's being pulled somewhere, he might as well arrive with momentum. Docking Bay 327. Anakin is at the range for his marksmanship rotation, and he puts 3 shots through the center of a moving target with the calm of a man who is running 17 parallel calculations and has simply allocated one of them to his trigger finger. The range officer marks his score. He nods and steps back and lets TK-903 take the next position. 6 hours. In 6 hours, Han and Luke will be in Stormtrooper armor moving through these corridors. In 6 hours, Obi-Wan will be making the decision that Anakin spent 3 days in a maintenance corridor trying to make unnecessary. In 6 hours, Leia Organa will be in a trash compactor with a man she has known for approximately 40 minutes, and she will already trust him. Because she is her mother's daughter, and her mother trusted everyone who deserved it immediately and without reservation. He puts that thought away. At 13:40, he requests a water break from the range rotation and steps into the corridor outside. The ISB agent, TK-897, present 3 meters to his left at a maintenance board, performing the theater of reviewing a routing log, does not look up. Anakin uses the hydration port and looks at the far wall and makes a decision. He cannot stop Alderaan. He has known this since the second day, and the knowledge has been sitting in his chest like a structural element. Weight-bearing, immovable, not something he is permitted to grieve yet, because grief takes processing time, and processing time is a luxury this body cannot currently afford. He cannot reach the superlaser. He cannot reach Tarkin. He cannot do anything that requires being somewhere other than exactly where TK-884 is supposed to be. He can make sure the escape works. That is the perimeter of what is possible. He draws it clean and does not expand it. At 15:20, the station alert upgrades to security level 2. Somewhere above him, in the detention block, A rescue is going badly in the specific way that all rescues go badly, with noise and improvisation, and a princess who is better at this than either of her rescuers expected. The corridors tighten. Troopers double time past the range exit. Radio traffic spikes in the helmet audio. Anakin falls in with a passing formation moving toward the docking bay sector, and does not break stride and does not look like a man who is going anywhere except where he is ordered. He is going to docking bay 327. He is going to make sure that when the Falcon leaves, it leaves with everyone it came for. He is going to make sure Obi-Wan Kenobi walks out of this station. The formation moves. He moves with it. White among white, faceless among the faceless. The corridor opens ahead of him, long and gray and certain. The escape pod hits Yavin 4's atmosphere at 0219 local time. Anakin does not know the pod's designation. He pulled the emergency release on Bay 12's secondary pod rack at 1847, 11 minutes after the Falcon cleared the magnetic containment field of docking bay 327, and he had exactly 4 seconds to make the choice before the bay sealed for post-departure lockdown. He made it without deliberation. Deliberation was a luxury that had expired approximately 6 hours earlier. The pod is a 2-person unit, single occupancy in practice, designed for short-range survival rather than comfort. It has a transponder, a 3-day atmosphere supply, a basic medical kit, and no hyperdrive. It is also, critically, not a TIE fighter, which means it does not have an Imperial IFF signal, which means it is not something the Death Star's defensive batteries will prioritize, and the 37 seconds between launch and the moment the station's attention is consumed by a Corellian freighter making an irregular departure. He rides the re-entry burn in his armor and watches Yavin 4 come up through the viewport and does not think about Alderaan. He thinks about Alderaan for approximately 40 seconds somewhere over the northern continent, and then he stops, because the alternative is not stopping, and not stopping means something structural gives way. And structural failures in the next 72 hours are not survivable. The pod hits the canopy and carves a furrow through the jungle and comes to rest at a 17-degree list against a root mass the diameter of a small building. He is out of the hatch in 40 seconds. The jungle closes around him, warm and wet and indifferent. He orients by star position. The Force is unnecessary for this, just the navigational memory of a man who has plotted courses across the galaxy for 4 decades, and begins moving northeast. The Rebel base is 11 kilometers away. He knows this because he debriefed the Death Star sensor reports on Yavin 4 as Darth Vader. He knows the base's footprint, its rough internal layout, the fact that it uses repurposed Massassi Temple infrastructure. He knows things about this base that the Rebellion does not know he knows. He's going to have to be very careful about how much of that he reveals, and when, and in what form. He walks 11 kilometers through primary jungle in Stormtrooper armor, which is not designed for jungle terrain and makes no pretense of being so. By the 3rd kilometer, his boots have accumulated enough moisture that each step produces a soft compression sound that would be tactically embarrassing in any other context. By the 7th kilometer, something in the canopy above him decides he is interesting and follows him for approximately a kilometer before losing interest. He does not use the Force to discourage it. Tier 1 passive sensing costs nothing but active influence on a living creature. Even something minor, even a redirection, burns through Tier 2 before he's completed the gesture. He cannot afford the headache. He has 11 kilometers to walk and a base full of people who are going to point weapons at him the moment he emerges from the tree line in Imperial white. He is looking forward to the weapons. Weapons mean people. People mean the next problem to solve. They find him 200 meters from the base perimeter. 3 rebels, good spacing, standard intercept formation. Someone trained these people properly, or they figured it out themselves, which would be more impressive. 2 have blaster rifles. 1 has a heavy repeater that is technically too large for a solo operator in dense jungle, but is being carried with the confidence of someone who has decided that the inconvenience is worth the deterrence value. Hands. Now. Anakin raises both hands. He does this slowly, deliberately, with the specific body language of a man who wants to be absolutely clear that he is not reaching for anything. He has been on the other side of this moment thousands of times. He knows what the person holding the weapon needs to see. Helmet off, the same voice says. Female, young. The kind of clipped command delivery that comes from someone who learned authority under pressure rather than in a classroom. He unlatches the helmet and removes it. The jungle air hits his face. Fen Darrow's face, mid-30s, Corellian bone structure, the kind of face that no one would remember in a crowd. And the three rebels see a man they have never seen before, looking back at them with an expression of complete and deliberate calm. "My name is Fen Darrow," he says. "I was TK-884 on the Death Star's Level 6 patrol rotation as of this morning. I have information that is time-critical. I need to speak with whoever is running your ground operations. Right now." A pause. The heavy repeater does not lower. "You have information," the woman says. Not a question. The specific flatness of someone who has heard this sentence before in this context and found it unreliable. "About the Death Star's approach vector and the timing of its orbital insertion window. You have roughly 19 hours before it's in firing range of this moon." He holds her eyes. "You already know that. What you may not know is the targeting sequence lag. There is a delay between firing authorization and primary beam convergence. That window can be exploited." The three rebels look at each other in the way that people look at each other when they are trying to decide whether the person in front of them is an asset or a problem. "Walk," the woman says. The heavy repeater stays up. He walks. The base commander is not who he expected. General Jan Dodona is a compact, precise man in his 60s who conducts the debrief with the efficiency of someone who has been doing this long enough to identify useful intelligence in the first 2 minutes of a conversation and discard the rest. He has a star map on the table, a cup of cold cafe he has not touched, and the expression of a man who has already been awake for a very long time. Anakin tells him what he can tell him. The targeting sequence lag is real. He knows this from the technical briefings he received as Vader during the station's construction phase. He translates it into the specific operational detail that a tactical planner can use. A window opens on firing authorization, measurable in seconds during which the primary beam convergence has not yet completed. He tells Dodona about the exhaust port. He describes it with the precision of a man who has reviewed the station's engineering schematics, which Anakin Skywalker has, though Fen Darrow has not. And the gap between those two facts is something he navigates carefully, framing everything as intel gathered during his rotation rather than structural knowledge. Dodona listens without interrupting. This is, Anakin thinks, the quality that makes a good commander, the ability to receive information without immediately processing it into confirmation of what you already believe. "The exhaust port," Dodona says when he finishes, "you're certain of the diameter. 2 meters. Runs directly to the main reactor. A proton torpedo at the correct angle will bypass the deflection system entirely. That's a very small target." "Yes." Dodona looks at him for a long moment. The star map hums softly between them. "You ejected from the Death Star in an Imperial pod," Dodona says. "We'll have to verify your biopsygens against Imperial records. If you're flagged as a deserter, the people who come looking will come here." "I know," Anakin says. "Run the verification. It'll come back clean. TK-884 is not in any loyalty file above standard rotation. I made sure of that." "You made sure." "I planned ahead." Dodona studies him with the quality of attention that commanders use when they are deciding whether a new variable is an asset or a liability. The decision takes approximately 8 seconds. Then he picks up the cold cafe, takes a sip, and sets it back down. "We'll put you with ground operations for now. You don't fly. We don't know you well enough for that. But if your information on the exhaust port holds up, you'll have earned a conversation." He pauses. "What made you defect?" Anakin looks at the star map. Yavin 4, small and green at the edge of the holographic display. The Death Star, a gray sphere moving through the dark toward it with the patience of something that does not hurry because it does not need to. "Alderaan," he says. "It is the only true thing Fen Darrow has ever said." Dodona nods once, slowly, and does not ask anything further. The briefing room fills at 0600. Anakin stands at the back wall. "Ground operations," Dodona's aide told him, which in practical terms means he is not in a flight suit and not at a console, and not anywhere near the tactical positions that will determine what happens in the next 6 hours. He is at the back wall with a borrowed rebel jacket over his stripped-down Stormtrooper body glove and a sidearm he has not been asked to surrender, which tells him that Dodona's verification ran clean and someone made a decision about him overnight, without announcing it. He watches the pilots file in. They are young. This is the thing that strikes him, not as sentiment, not as the weight of the observation applied to himself, just as a tactical reality that carries more information than it should. They are young, and they move with the specific energy of people who have chosen this, who are here because they decided the cost was acceptable, and have not yet fully priced it. There are 30-odd of them, various species, various backgrounds, and they carry themselves with the compressed alertness of people who know the next 12 hours will be definitive. He finds Luke Skywalker in 11 seconds. He was not looking for him. That is the truth of it. And he holds it honestly. He was not looking, and his eyes found him anyway, the way. He does not finish the thought, he files it. He looks at the wall above Luke's head and keeps it there. Luke is sitting 3 rows from the front, slightly to the left, between a rebel pilot Anakin doesn't recognize and Wedge Antilles, a name that appears in the Death Star's own flight crew records, flagged as a recent Imperial Navy defector. Luke is 20 years old, and he has the bone structure of Padme Amidala and the jaw of Anakin Skywalker, and he is listening to Dodonna's briefing with the particular quality of attention that a person displays when they are trying to memorize, something they are afraid they won't have time to learn. Anakin looks at the wall. Dodonna briefs the trench run, the exhaust port, 2 meters, proton torpedoes, the firing window. Anakin hears his own intelligence translated into operational language and distributed to 30 pilots who will spend the next 4 hours deciding whether they believe it. Several of them shift in their seats when the exhaust port diameter is given. 2 meters. The math is apparent. At the back wall, Anakin runs a different calculation. Luke makes it in the original sequence. Luke makes it because he turns off his targeting computer at the critical moment and trusts something that no one else in that trench can access. He makes it because the Force is not subtle when it is working through someone it has chosen, and the Force has been working toward this moment since before Luke was born. He knows this. He knows what Luke is. He knows what Luke will become. He stands at the back wall and watches his son receive a mission briefing and breathes through it. The hours between briefing and launch are the longest Anakin has spent standing still since he woke in the barracks. Ground operations assigns him to the flight deck perimeter. Crowd control is too grand a term for it, but that is functionally what it is. He stands near the mouth of the hangar with 2 other non-flight personnel and watches the X-Wings and Y-Wings get prepped with the organized urgency of a ground crew that has done this before and knows the timeline. At 0940, Luke Skywalker crosses the hangar 12 meters in front of him. He is moving toward his X-Wing, with the walk of someone who has been moving toward this moment his entire life without knowing it, and he passes close enough that Anakin could reach out, and he does not reach out. He stands at the hangar mouth with his hands at his sides and watches Luke Skywalker climb into the cockpit of Red 5 and does not allow his face to do anything that his face apparently wants to do. Then he hears the voice. He's something, isn't he? Han Solo is leaning against a support strut 4 meters to Anakin's left. He has the posture of a man who is pretending to be more relaxed than he is, which Anakin recognizes as a particular form of dishonesty that very confident people use when they are, in fact, not certain. He is watching Luke's X-Wing with an expression that sits somewhere between exasperation and something he probably doesn't have a word for yet. Anakin says nothing. Kid's never flown anything like that in actual combat, Han says. He is not talking to Anakin specifically. He is talking in the general direction of someone who might respond, which is slightly different. Simulations. Bullseyeing womp rats on Tatooine, apparently. That's what he told me. A pause. Womp rats? He'll be fine, Anakin says. Han looks at him. The assessment takes about 2 seconds and arrives at unknown quantity, no threat signature, probably not worth pursuing. You sound pretty sure about that. I am. Based on what? Anakin watches the ground crew run the final pre-flight checks on Red 5. Based on the fact that he's here, he could have walked away at Mos Eisley, and he didn't. He could have walked away on the Death Star, and he didn't. He pauses. People who keep showing up tend to figure it out. Han Solo looks at him for a moment with the expression of someone who has just been told something that is either very wise or very stupid and hasn't determined which yet. Sure, Han says, and pushes off the strut and walks back toward the Falcon. Anakin watches him go. He thinks, you're going to come back. He thinks it with the certainty of someone who has read the end of this chapter and knows what it costs Han Solo to make that turn, and what it means that he makes it anyway. He thinks, you don't know yet what kind of person you are, and in about 6 hours, you're going to find out, and it is going to rearrange you in ways you won't fully understand for years. He does not say any of this. He watches the Falcon's loading ramp and breathes. The launch begins at 10:47. Anakin watches every ship clear the hangar mouth. Red Squadron, Gold Squadron, the Y-Wings heavy and deliberate, the X-Wings quick and precise. He watches Red 5 lift and rotate and accelerate into the Yavin sky and does not look away until the engine trail is gone. Then he goes back inside and finds the nearest operational console that is not being actively staffed, and pulls up the tactical feed. No one stops him. Dodonna's verification has apparently communicated something to the base's operational culture, because the two crew members nearby glance at him and return to their own stations without comment. He is a known defector with clean loyalty flags and verified intelligence. In the rebellion, that appears to be sufficient credential for watching a battle unfold on a display screen. He watches. Gold Leader makes the first trench run. The angle is slightly off. Anakin can see it in the trajectory data before Gold Leader can correct it. The approach vector carrying 2 degrees of lateral drift that will compound across the run length. He watches Gold Leader compensate and fall short and pull out. And he does not say anything because there is nothing to say, because this is the sequence, and the sequence requires these attempts to fail before the one that doesn't. He watches Vader's fighter enter the tactical display. The TIE Advanced is unmistakable, not visually, not at this resolution, but in the Force. Even at this distance, even through a borrowed body with 1,200 midichlorians per cell, Vader's presence in the Force is a gravity well that warps everything adjacent to it. It is the dark side distilled into a man and sealed in black armor, and it is moving through the trench at a velocity that means Red 2 and Red 3 have approximately 40 seconds. Red 2 and Red 3 have 38 seconds. Anakin's hands are flat on the console. He does not move them. Red 5 goes in. The tactical feed shows the run in abbreviated data, velocity, position, the targeting system signal, and then the gap where the targeting system signal drops, and there is nothing but position data and a pilot who has turned off the instrument that everyone else in this battle has been using to aim. He counts the seconds without meaning to, an old reflex, military timing drilled in across 40 years of operational command. At the 11th second, 2 proton torpedoes leave Red 5's payload bay. At the 12th, the Death Star's firing sequence authorizes. At the 13th, the torpedoes enter the exhaust port. The tactical display goes white. Anakin straightens up from the console. Around him, the operations room erupts. Voices, movement, someone grabbing someone else by the shoulders, the compressed release of people who have been holding their breath for 6 hours and have just been given permission to exhale. He stands very still in the center of it. Out there, in the debris field spreading across Yavin's orbital plane, Luke Skywalker is alive. The Force confirms it without being asked, a simple warmth in the passive register, present and unhurt and burning with something that will take him years to understand. Anakin closes his eyes for 3 seconds. Then he opens them and steps back from the console and lets the room celebrate around him. There is still work to do. The celebration lasts 3 days. Anakin spends them working, not visibly, not in any way that distinguishes TK-884 turned defector from the general population of a rebel base, processing a victory it did not fully believe was possible until it happened. He eats in the communal mess. He sleeps in the bunk assigned to him in the secondary barracks block, which smells like mildew and engine solvent, and is, in every material sense, indistinguishable from the Death Star barracks except that no one is enforcing lights out. And someone 3 bunks over plays a stringed instrument badly and without apparent awareness that this is occurring. He lies in the dark and listens to the bad music and catalogs what he knows. The rebellion will not stay on Yavin 4. The Empire's reconnaissance will have the debris field triangulated within 72 hours. The Death Star is gone, but the Imperial fleet is not, and the fleet knows where the battle was, which means the fleet knows approximately where the base is. Evacuation will begin within the week. He does not know where they will go next. In the original sequence, this knowledge was not available to him because he was the one doing the hunting. He knows the shape of the next 3 years from the Imperial side. What he does not know, what he has never known, is the texture of it from inside the rebellion. The routes, the safe houses, the supply chains, the command structure below the level that Vader was briefed on. He is going to need to learn it, quickly, without appearing to be learning it. This is not a new skill. On the second day, he finds a use for the bad musician. His name is Dex Malari, a human from Corellia who flew Y-wing support during the battle and survived by the margin of a TIE fighter whose targeting system malfunctioned at the critical moment. He plays the instrument, a tonal stringed thing with no name Anakin recognizes, because he cannot sleep, and he cannot sleep because the margin was that thin, and he knows it. He has the specific wide-awake quality of someone whose nervous system has not yet accepted that the danger has passed. Anakin sits near him on the second night and does not comment on the playing. After a while, Dex stops. "You're the defector," he says. "Yes, the exhaust port information came from you, some of it." Dex looks at him with the evaluating expression of a pilot assessing an unfamiliar craft. Not hostile, just precise. "Gold Leader died in that trench," he says. "Red 2 and Red 3. I flew with Puck Nico for 8 months. Anakin holds the silence that this requires. He does not offer consolation. Consolation from a man in a borrowed rebel jacket who was wearing Imperial white 36 hours ago is not what Dex Malari needs. What he needs is someone who does not flinch from the specific weight of the number. "I know," Anakin says. Dex nods. He does not play again that night, but he does not leave either, and by the third day he has introduced Anakin to the network of mid-rank pilots and support crew that constitutes the rebellion's functional social fabric. The people who know where things are, how things move, who makes decisions, and who merely announces them. Anakin listens. He asks questions in the register of a man learning a new posting, which is exactly what he is, and the information assembles itself around him in layers. On the third day, Luke Skywalker sits down across from him at breakfast. Anakin sees him coming from across the mess hall and has exactly 4 seconds to decide what his face does. He decides, neutral, mild, the expression of a man who recognizes someone from the battle briefing and has no particular feelings about this encounter. "You're Fendero," Luke says. He has a tray of food he is not looking at. He has the quality of attention that Anakin first recognized from the tactical display. Total, unguarded, the Force moving through him without his awareness like light through a clean window. "Yes, the exhaust port. That was your information." "Partly," Anakin says. Same answer as with Dex. Let the record be consistent. Luke looks at him, not assessing the way Dodonna assessed him, not evaluating the way Dex evaluated him. Something else. Something that does not have a tactical category. "I felt something," Luke says. "In the trench. When I turned off the targeting computer." He stops. Starts again with the precision of someone trying to describe a color that doesn't have a name. "There was a voice. I thought I recognized it, but it wasn't anyone on the comm." Anakin eats a bite of protein paste that is nearly identical in quality to the Imperial version and does not look up from his tray. "Adrenaline does complicated things to perception," he says. "It wasn't adrenaline." "No," Anakin agrees. "Probably not." Luke waits. He is patient in the way that young people are patient when they have decided they are going to wait for something. Not the long patience of someone who has learned to wait, but the intense, compressed patience of someone who has decided this specific moment deserves waiting for. Anakin sets down his utensil. "What do you know about the Force?" he asks. Luke's expression shifts. Not surprise, recognition, the look of someone who has been carrying a question and has just found someone who might be able to hold the other end of it. "Not much. Ben told me. Obi-Wan Kenobi. He told me some things before he stops, before the Death Star." "What things?" "That it's an energy field, that it connects everything." A pause. "That my father was strong in it." Anakin looks at his tray. The protein paste is gray and precise, and requires complete attention to eat convincingly. "Your father," he says, "he was a Jedi, before." Luke does not finish the before. The before contains everything, and Luke does not yet have the language for what the before contains. Anakin picks up his utensil and eats another bite, and says, in the voice of a man who is being very careful about what he gives away, and to whom, the Force isn't just an energy field. It isn't just connection. It has a direction. It moves toward things. It has been moving toward this battle for a very long time, and you were the mechanism it chose. And that is not an accident, and it is not adrenaline. Luke stares at him. "How do you know that?" he asks. "I've been watching it work for a long time," Anakin says. "This is the truest thing Fendero has ever said." Luke is quiet for a moment. The mess hall moves around them. Trays, voices, the specific noise of a group of people exhaling a collective held breath across 3 days. Obi-Wan said I needed a teacher, Luke says. Finally, he said he was gone, but the Force would. He said it would provide. Anakin does not allow his face to change. He does not allow his posture to change. He picks up his water cup and drinks from it, and sets it back down and says, in the measured tone of a man making a minor operational suggestion, then you should probably start paying attention to what it's already teaching you. What is it already teaching me? That the targeting computer is a tool, not a truth. That the voice you heard in the trench knew the angle better than the instrument did. He pauses. That you trusted it. Luke absorbs this. He has the quality of a person for whom information does not land on the surface and stay there. It goes in, and you can see it going in. Will you? He stops, recalibrates. I don't have anyone who can explain this. I know. Anakin says, will you help me understand it? Anakin looks at his son across a mess hall table on a jungle moon, in a borrowed face, with two ordinary hands wrapped around a water cup. He thinks about what yes means in this context, the exposure it creates, the proximity it requires, the specific quality of pain that comes from teaching someone something important, when they cannot know who is teaching them. He thinks about what no means. Don't mistake me for a Jedi Master, he says, which is not a no. I'm a defector with a functional understanding of how the Force works under pressure. That's all I'm offering. Luke nods, slowly, with the gravity of someone accepting terms they intend to hold to. That's enough, he says. Across the mess hall, through the transparent steel panels in the far wall, the jungle of Yavin 4 moves in a morning wind. Green and indifferent and alive in every direction. Anakin finishes his. Neither of them mentions it again that day, which is how the most important agreements are always made. The evacuation takes 6 days. Anakin spends them moving cargo. This is not a metaphor. The rebellion's logistical infrastructure at the point of base relocation operates on available bodies rather than rank or specialization. And available bodies carry crates. He carries crates. He carries equipment, housing and power cell arrays, and medical supply containers, and the disassembled components of a sensor array that requires 4 people and specific lifting angles, and produces, when incorrectly handled, a harmonic vibration that sets teeth on edge. He learns this on the second carry attempt. He adjusts his grip. He carries crates, and he listens, and he maps the rebellion's operational structure the way he once mapped enemy fleet positions, not through any instrument, just through the accumulated observation of a man who has been doing this for 40 years and knows that organizations reveal themselves most honestly when they are under logistical stress. What he learns, the Alliance is smaller than the Empire believed, more distributed. The command structure is flatter than any Imperial model would produce. Decisions happen faster at lower levels, which creates tactical flexibility and coordination problems in equal measure. The supply chain is a patchwork of sympathizers, neutral merchants, and outright smugglers held together by relationships rather than protocols. It is, he thinks, extremely difficult to destroy. You cannot cut the head off something that does not have a single head. He files this with the particular appreciation of a man who spent 20 years trying to do exactly that. They relocate to a temporary staging base in the Outer Rim. Anakin does not record the coordinates. He does not need to. And the habit of not recording operationally sensitive information in accessible formats is too deeply ingrained to override. He notes the stellar configuration through the base's exterior viewports and places himself within 3 light-years of accuracy. The new base is a former mining installation. Low ceilings, narrow corridors, the residual smell of processed ore that no ventilation system has fully cleared in however many years it has been vacant. It is cold, in the way that places are cold when they were not designed for long-term habitation. He is issued a bunk, a work assignment, and a comm unit. On the 3rd day at the new base, the comm unit receives a standard intelligence summary from Alliance High Command. He reads it in the mess hall over gray protein paste. The rebellion appears to have a single supplier for gray protein paste, or possibly a single definition of food, and finds, in the 4th paragraph of the threat assessment section, his own name, not Fendero, his actual name. Darth Vader, Imperial Enforcer, Dark Lord of the Sith. Current status, active. Recent confirmed activities include personal direction of the Death Star prisoner interrogation protocols and command of the TIE advanced pursuit during the Battle of Yavin. Considered highest priority threat asset to rebel operations. All personnel advised to treat any Vader-adjacent Imperial operation as Tier 1 engagement risk. He sets the comm unit down. He picks up his water cup. He drinks from it. Vader is hunting them. He knew this, in the abstract, knew it the way he knew Alderaan, held at distance, present but not yet processed. But seeing it in an Alliance intelligence summary converts the abstract into operational. Vader is in the field. Vader is directing search operations. Vader is at this exact moment moving through the outer rim with the patience of something that does not hurry, because it does not need to hurry, and he is looking for the rebellion. And he will find them, because Anakin Skywalker built the Imperial Search Doctrine, and Darth Vader has been refining it for 23 years. He knows exactly how Vader thinks. He knows the search pattern. He knows the prioritization logic, the way Vader weights signals, the indicators he uses to distinguish genuine rebel activity from deception operations, the specific tells in comm traffic and supply movement that the dark side amplifies into certainty. He knows all of this because he is Vader. He is Vader looking for himself. The geometry of this is not lost on him. He goes to find Luke. Luke has claimed a corner of the base's former equipment storage bay as a training space. Not officially, just practically. The way young people claim spaces by showing up in them consistently enough that the space becomes associated with them. He is there when Anakin arrives, working through a sequence of movements with a training remote that someone has sourced from what appears to be a surplus equipment cache. The remote is old. It fires at irregular intervals and the stun setting is miscalibrated slightly high, which Luke has apparently decided is a feature rather than a defect. Anakin watches from the doorway for 30 seconds. The movements are rough. Untrained in any formal sense, Luke has no foundation, no vocabulary, no framework for what he is trying to do. But the Force is present in the room in the specific way it is present when someone is genuinely accessing it rather than performing access. And Luke's body is responding to stimuli before the stimuli are fully visible, which is the foundational indicator of someone the Force is working through rather than working with. He would have been extraordinary with proper training at 6 years old. He is going to be extraordinary anyway. Your feet, Anakin says. Luke lowers the training saber, looks at his feet. Looks up. What about them? You're planted. When the remote fires high, you're moving your arms to compensate, which means your center is wrong, which means you're always a reaction behind. Anakin crosses to the center of the room. Stand here. Luke stands here. Wider stance. Weight on the balls, not the heels. The Force doesn't move through a planted body. It moves through a body that's already moving. Luke adjusts. The change is immediate and visible, a quality of readiness that the previous stance didn't have, like the difference between a door that is closed and a door that is only latched. Anakin nods at the remote. Again. The remote fires. Luke moves. The adjustment is not perfect. The footwork is there, but the arm position still carries the old compensation habit. But the response time has dropped by a measurable fraction and Luke feels it. Anakin can see him feel it. The small recalibration that happens in a person's expression when their body does something more correctly than it has done it before. They work for 40 minutes. Anakin does not touch the Force. He does not need to. He is drawing on the deepest available resource, which is the accumulated knowledge of a man who trained under Obi-Wan Kenobi and then spent 23 years as the most dangerous lightsaber combatant in the galaxy, translated into the language of a functional understanding of how the Force works under pressure, delivered by a defector in a borrowed jacket in a former mining installation in the Outer Rim. It is, he thinks, the most honest teaching he has ever done. At the end of the session, Luke sits on the floor and drinks water and says, without preamble, Vader was at Yavin. Yes, he killed. Luke stops. The stop is not grief yet, or not only grief. It has the particular quality of something that has been processed to the edge of what language can hold, and then stopped there. He killed Obi-Wan. Anakin is quiet for a moment that the statement requires. I know, he says. He's going to keep coming. Not a question. The flat assessment of someone who has looked at the shape of a problem and seen its full dimension. He doesn't stop. The intelligence summaries. He doesn't stop. No, Anakin says. He doesn't. Luke looks at the training remote, which has drifted to the far end of the room and is hovering at rest in the way that incorrectly calibrated remotes hover, slightly too high, with a faint irregular oscillation. What do you know about him? Luke asks. From the Empire, from inside. Anakin looks at the remote. He was not always what he is, he says after a moment. That matters, not because it changes what he does, but because it means the thing he does it with, the thing underneath, was not built for this. That's supposed to be reassuring? No. It's supposed to be accurate. Luke absorbs this. The remote oscillates in the far corner. Can he be stopped? Anakin is quiet for a long time. The question has a specific answer, and the answer runs through a carbon-freezing chamber on Bespin, and a body with 200 midichlorians per cell, and a technique that is not survivable. And none of that is information that Luke Skywalker needs at this moment, or in this form. Yes, he says. Luke nods. He picks up the training saber and stands. His feet are in the right position without being reminded. The remote fires. He moves correctly. The months that follow have the texture of something being built in the dark. Anakin moves through rebel postings the way water moves through rock. Not dramatically, not with force, but with the patient persistence of something that knows the destination and is content to find it by the available route. A second staging base, then a third. A supply run to the outer rim that he volunteers for because the route passes within scanning range of 2 Imperial listening posts, and he needs to understand how the rebellion's counter-surveillance operates. A week embedded with a Spec Ops team planning an extraction on a mid-rim garrison world, during which he provides tactical input framed as defector knowledge and watches the team lead integrate it without questioning the source. He is building a record, not a cover, a record. A genuine, verifiable history of a man who came out of the Empire with useful things and has continued to produce useful things, and who has made himself necessary enough to the operational fabric that his presence has stopped being questioned and started being assumed. Luke trains when they are in the same place, which is not always. The sessions are irregular by necessity, a base rotation here, a transit gap there, but they accumulate. Luke's footwork becomes reliable. His reaction time through the Force drops past the threshold where thought is still involved. He begins to trust the pull before he identifies it as a pull, which is the correct order. Anakin watches this and says very little about it, because the things he could say about it are not things that Fendaro would say, and he has not yet found the form in which to say them without collapsing the distance he has maintained for a year. He will. He knows this. The Force is not subtle about certain things. But not yet. On Hoth, in the final hours before the Imperial assault completes its encirclement of Echo Base, Luke diverts, not away from danger, through it, and then sideways in the direction of a pull that Anakin has been feeling from 3 systems away for 2 weeks. The Dagobah system. Something very old and very patient, waiting on a bog planet at the edge of known space. Yoda. Anakin carries a crate of navigation equipment through a corridor that is shaking from ion cannon fire and does not allow his expression to change. The sequence is intact. Luke is going where he needs to go. Whatever happens on Dagobah, it is the foundation of what comes after, and what comes after is not something he is permitted to compromise by being in the wrong place at the wrong time. He loads onto the last transport with 20 other non-combat personnel and watches Hoth shrink through the viewport and does not look for Luke's X-Wing in the departure corridor. He is not there. He is exactly where he should be. The trap is Han Solo's fault, in the way that most traps are the fault of the person who trusted someone they shouldn't have. Anakin knows it is a trap before the Falcon drops out of hyperspace above Bespin. He knows it the way he knows everything about the Imperial playbook, from the inside, from having written sections of it himself, from having sat across the table from the Admiral who designed the Outer Rim dragnet and watched the search pattern tighten over 6 months of pursuit. The Falcon's hyperdrive has been malfunctioning for 3 weeks. Han has been running the calculation on every available repair option, and Bespin is the one that does not appear in any Rebel database as compromised. That is, Anakin has come to understand precisely why it is compromised. He is in the Falcon's secondary hold when the approach begins. He is here because 3 weeks ago, after the Hoth evacuation, another base, another emergency relocation, another 6 days of carrying crates while the Empire dismantled everything they had built, Han Solo looked at him across a cargo manifest and said, with the air of a man making a practical decision he refuses to call anything else, "You know Imperial search patterns. You're coming with us." He is here because Luke is not. Luke diverted at the last moment, course change to the Dagobah system, something in the Force pulling him there with the quiet insistence of something that has been patient for a very long time. Anakin felt the pull from 3 ships away and said nothing. Dagobah means Yoda. Yoda means training. That sequence is intact. He focuses on the sequence that is not. The Force has been pressing against him since the Hoth evacuation, not as warning exactly, but as the particular quality of pressure that precedes something inevitable, not dread, inevitability. The difference between those two things is the difference between a man who does not know what is coming and a man who does. And Anakin has known what is coming since he worked out the trajectory of the Falcon's hyperdrive failures against the map of available friendly ports, and arrived at Bespin as the only answer the math would produce. He has been preparing for it for 3 weeks. He has not told anyone. Cloud City is beautiful in the way that Imperial traps are sometimes beautiful, all amber light and open sky, and the specific aesthetic of a place that has decided its appearance is its primary defense. The Tabana gas processing platforms extend in every direction below the landing deck, and the clouds move around them in the slow rotation of something that has been doing this for longer than the city has existed. Lando Calrissian meets them on the landing deck. Anakin reads him in the first 30 seconds. Not force. The man's body language is doing everything that body language does when a person is performing comfort they do not feel. The greeting is calibrated slightly too warm. The eye contact with Han holds slightly too long. The compensation of someone who is afraid that looking away will communicate the thing they are trying not to communicate. He is a man standing at the intersection of two obligations and has recently discovered that the intersection has no safe position. He is also, Anakin notes, trying not to look at the corridor to the left of the landing deck entrance. The effort is almost invisible. Anakin looks at the corridor to the left of the landing deck entrance. He does not see anything. He does not need to. He falls back to the rear of the group with the practiced ease of a man who has been making himself peripheral for over a year and has become very skilled at it. Leia is talking to Han. Chewbacca is carrying equipment. C-3PO is being C-3PO in the specific way that C-3PO is always C-3PO. Comprehensive, anxious, and containing more situational intelligence than anyone in the group is currently using. Anakin uses it. The city's Stormtrooper deployment has increased by approximately 300% in the last 12 hours, he says quietly. To no one in particular, he is looking at a viewport. Reflected in the viewport, he can see Lando hear this and make no external response whatsoever, which is itself a response. He has approximately 4 minutes before the trap closes. He does not stop it. He needs to be clear with himself about this, because the temptation to stop it is specific and acute and requires deliberate management. He cannot stop it. Stopping it means revealing capabilities that Fendero does not have, tactical knowledge that no Imperial defector, however well placed, would possess at this operational depth. It means exposing the architecture of everything he has built over more than a year of careful performance. More critically, it means changing what happens to Han. He has run this calculation to its end. In the original sequence, Han's capture and carbonite freezing is the event that sends Luke to Bespin. But in this iteration, the calculus is more precise than that, and he has turned it over in the Falcon's secondary hold for 3 weeks until he can see every face of it clearly. Luke is on Dagobah. Luke is with Yoda. The force pull that brought him there is the same force that has been moving every piece of this sequence into position since before Luke was born, and it will not release him to Bespin on the basis of second-hand danger alone. What will release him is Vader. Vader's presence on Bespin is a gravitational event in the Force. The same dark side mass that Anakin felt from across a battle during Yavin, the same cold weight that warps every room it occupies. Luke will feel it on Dagobah the way you feel a storm before it arrives, not through the window but in the pressure of the air. He will feel it, and he will feel what it means for the people on this station, and he will come regardless of whether they are in immediate danger, because Luke Skywalker has never once in his life felt something matter and then walked away from it. Anakin has been counting on this for 3 weeks. Remove the carbonite. Remove the moment in the carbon-freezing chamber where Luke faces Vader without his training complete, and receives the truth that makes the completion possible. And Luke Skywalker goes to face Palpatine without the single piece of information that makes him capable of what he eventually does. He cannot stop it. He will not stop it. He waits in a Cloud City corridor while the trap closes around the people he has spent over a year protecting, and he breathes, and he does the only thing that is available to him. He plans the part that comes after. They take him with the others. This is expected. He is rebel-affiliated, he is present, he is therefore a liability to be contained. 2 stormtroopers he does not recognize process him into a holding room on the facility's security level with the efficient indifference of people performing a routine task. The room is beige. There is a bench. He sits on it. He waits. He calculates, time enough. The force pull toward Dagobah became insistence weeks ago, and Luke, who has been learning to trust insistence, will not ignore a call this loud for long. But Vader's presence here will reach Dagobah like a hand through the Force, and when it does, nothing Yoda says will hold Luke on that planet. Because Luke will feel not only Vader but the people Vader is using as leverage, and he will come. That is the mechanism. That is what Anakin has been trusting. What he needs to do before Luke arrives is reduce the leverage. Lando Calrissian opens the holding room door at 0340. He has the look of a man who has been sitting with a decision long enough that making it is actually a relief. "We need to talk," he says. "Yes," Anakin says, "we do." Lando sits on the other end of the bench. The door, Anakin notes, is not locked from the outside. Vader has Han. The freezing chamber, he stops. Works through something. "I didn't have a choice." "You had a choice," Anakin says, "without heat. You made the one you had to make. That's different from not having one." Lando looks at him. "Who are you? Someone who knows what Vader is going to do next and needs your help preventing the part that can still be prevented." He folds his hands in his lap. Han is already in carbonite. That cannot be changed. What can be changed is whether Vader gets to use the people still breathing as the reason Luke Skywalker surrenders when he arrives. The name lands on Lando, the way the name lands on everyone who has been near the Battle of Yavin, with a specific weight. Vader wants the boy, Lando says. Vader wants leverage over the boy. He wants Luke to come here, and Luke is coming, not because his friends are in danger, but because he can feel Vader's presence from wherever he is right now, and Luke does not walk away from things that matter. But leverage is still leverage. If the princess and the Wookiee are Vader's collateral, Luke has a reason to surrender himself before the fight begins. He pauses, remove the collateral, and Luke faces Vader as himself, not as a man negotiating for other people's lives. Lando completes the logic with the speed of a man who runs a city and has spent years thinking in systems. "You need me to get your people out. I need you to get the princess and the Wookiee out. They need to be in the air before Luke lands." He meets Lando's eyes. Luke is going to face Vader regardless. That is fixed. But he should face him as a free man, not a hostage. Lando is quiet for a long moment. The city hums around them. The deep industrial rhythm of Tabana gas processing. The structural vibration of a platform floating in permanent wind. "And you?" Lando asks. Anakin looks at his two ordinary hands, resting in his lap. "I'm going to the carbon freezing chamber," he says. Lando reads him with the precision of a man who has survived a long time by reading people correctly. What he finds in Anakin's face is not bravado. It is not recklessness. It is the specific quality of a man who has done all of his accounting and knows exactly what the final number is. "You're going to face Vader," Lando says. Someone has to make sure Luke doesn't face him alone. Outside, in the amber dark of Bespin's permanent cloud cover, something vast and patient is moving toward the city. Anakin stands up from the bench. The carbon freezing chamber smells like scorched metal and old cold. Anakin knows this smell. He has stood in this room before, on the other side of everything, in black armor, with a respirator cycling measured breaths into lungs that could not manage the task alone. He knows the amber light, the raised platform, the hydraulic mechanism that lowers the freezing cradle into the pit. He knows the sound the chamber makes when it reaches operational temperature, a low, sustained tone that sits just below the threshold of conscious hearing and vibrates in the back teeth. He is here, 40 minutes before Luke arrives. The chamber is unoccupied. Lando's people cleared it after Han's freezing. The carbon block is already gone, already moving toward the Executor with Boba Fett and the specific cold patience of a bounty hunter who has been paid. The room is empty and operational and lit, in the amber register of standby mode, and Anakin walks to the center of it, and stands on the platform and looks at the room, and lets himself know what he is about to do. He has known for 3 weeks. The knowing has not changed anything about the preparation, but there is a difference between knowing and standing in the room where it will happen, and he gives that difference the 30 seconds it deserves. 30 seconds. Then he moves to the east wall and waits. Vader enters from the north corridor at 0417. He comes alone. This is tactically unexpected and psychologically precise. Vader does not bring witnesses to things he considers personal, and this, Anakin understands, has become personal. The Force presence enters the room before the black armor does, the dark side gravity well that warps everything adjacent to it. And Anakin, standing against the east wall with his borrowed body absolutely still, feels it press against his passive awareness, like a hand against a door. The door holds. Vader stops at the chamber's center and does not look toward the east wall immediately. He looks at the freezing platform. He stands in front of the mechanism that an hour ago held Han Solo, and looks at it with the stillness of a man processing something that did not go as completely as planned. Then he turns. The red lenses find Anakin against the east wall with the precision of a targeting system, and for a moment, 3 full seconds long enough to count, neither of them moves. The respirator cycles. Once, twice. "You are not a defector," Vader says. The vocoder translates the voice into its familiar register, flat and resonant and final. "It is not a question." "No," Anakin says. Vader's head tilts, the micro-adjustment of a man recalibrating. "You are strong in the Force. I sensed the anomaly on the Death Star." A pause. "I attributed it to the old man. I know. You have been with the rebellion for over a year." Not accusatory, analytical. Vader processing intelligence the way Vader always processes intelligence, not with emotion, but with the cold architecture of a man building a tactical picture in real time. "You trained the boy." The boy. Luke. Anakin holds his face absolutely still. "Some," he says. Vader looks at him with the red lenses that show nothing, and behind which Anakin knows every micro-expression that will never be visible, every calculation running in a mind that is also his mind, 23 years downstream from the last moment they were the same person. "Who are you?" Vader says. The words carry no interrogative lift. They are a statement about the inadequacy of current information, the precise form of the question that Anakin Skywalker would ask, has always asked, when the data does not yet resolve into a clear picture. "Someone who remembers what you were before you decided this was all there was," Anakin says. The respirator cycles. Vader's right hand moves. The lightsaber ignites. Crimson, the familiar blade that Anakin has seen from both sides of, and it fills the amber chamber with a red that, layered on red, makes the room look like the inside of something burning. Anakin does not move. "You cannot fight me," Vader says. "You have no weapon." "I know. You will die in this room." "Yes." The certainty in the answer stops Vader for 1 full second. He is not accustomed to certainty in this direction, to someone who has run the complete accounting and arrived at this room and this outcome and come anyway. The dark side does not produce this kind of certainty. The dark side produces the certainty of power, the certainty of dominance. This is something else, and Vader recognizes it the way you recognize something you once knew and have spent 23 years not thinking about. He crosses the chamber in 3 strides, and the crimson blade comes in a horizontal arc, aimed at ending the conversation at its structural root. Anakin raises both hands. Tutaminis. The technique is textbook perfect. The Force wraps his palms in redirected energy, absorbing the lightsaber's plasma into the Force current running through this body, rather than letting it cut. The physics are clean. His hands do not burn. What happens next is not clean. The absorbed energy of a lightsaber strike channeling through a body with 1,200 midichlorians per cell, while simultaneously holding a Tier 4 Force technique, is not a sustainable condition. His forearm muscles tear from the bone in the first second, both arms, simultaneously a tearing that is total and white, and removes the use of his hands as a practical category. Capillaries throughout his chest wall rupture in a wave-moving sternum to spine. He redirects. The absorbed energy moves along the Force connection between himself and the armored being in front of him. The connection that exists because they are the same person, because the Force does not recognize the distinction between a soul and its downstream consequence. And he sends it into Vader's life support with the precision of a grandmaster who knows this system from the inside. The respirator control module. Behind 3 centimeters of durasteel, connected to Vader's nervous system. The Force does not care about durasteel. The life support fails. The respirator cycles twice. Irregular, 3 times. Then it stops. Vader goes to his knees. Anakin goes to his knees in front of the black suit. His arms are not functional. He is bleeding from locations he cannot count. He calculates with the detached precision of a man who has been doing this kind of accounting for 40 years, 4 minutes of useful consciousness remaining. He looks at the helmet. the red lenses dimming as the suit's power systems cascade through failure sequence. He does not feel triumph. He feels the specific exhaustion of something completed, the last item on a list that has been running for 23 years, checked and set down. "I know you feel it," he says. His voice comes out steady, barely, the Corellian vowels of Fendero's vocal cords carrying words that belong to someone else entirely. The pull toward the light, it's real. It was always real. You just couldn't find a way back. The respirator does not answer. It is trying to cycle and cannot. "I found it," Anakin says. "It took me 23 years in someone else's hands, but I found it." A breath, the last clean one he is going to get. You can go now, you're free. The force presence in the chamber changes. The dark side gravity well, the mass of it, the cold weight that has warped every room Vader has ever occupied releases. Not extinguished, released. Like a hand opening. Like something that has been held too long finally being set down. Something older and quieter moves through the chamber. Then it is gone. Luke arrives through the west door. He finds Anakin on the platform, not upright. He crosses the chamber fast, and goes to his knees, and his face does what the faces of young people do when they have arrived too late and know it, and cannot stop knowing it. He takes Anakin's hand, the hand that is torn through and cannot grip back. What happened? His voice is very young. "Who was that? Someone who needed to leave," Anakin says. "He's gone now." Luke looks at the black suit collapsed on the platform. "You killed him. I convinced him. There's a difference." A cough. The metallic taste of internal bleeding. Familiar now. The body's honest accounting. "Luke, I'm here." "I know." He looks at his son. Ordinary and extraordinary in the same breath, the force moving through him like light through a clean window. Exactly what he was always going to be. "You've been exactly what you should be. All of this. Every moment. You did it right. You're doing it right." "I don't understand. Who are you?" Anakin looks at him. He could tell him. He has earned it. This truth. This specific truth. The one that would make everything make sense. But Luke's grief, received now with the truth attached, would be about what he lost. And Luke needs his grief to be forward-facing. Luke needs to carry this forward rather than back. He smiles. It is the first completely unguarded expression on this borrowed face. "I'm someone who owed you a debt," he says. "Consider it paid." His eyes close. The cosmic force, enormous and patient and unmistakably present, takes the last light in the room and carries it somewhere beyond the amber dark. Luke kneels in the carbon-freezing chamber on Bespin, holding the hand of a man he doesn't know. Outside, through the amber viewports, the clouds of the gas giant turn slowly. Leia and Chewie are already in the air, Lando's ships cutting northeast through the cloud cover toward the rendezvous point, safe because someone planned 3 weeks ahead and trusted the math. The Emperor has lost the only weapon that could break Luke Skywalker before Luke Skywalker was ready to be unbreakable. Luke stands. He does not yet know what he was just given. He will understand it slowly, in reverse, from the parts that stay with him, working backward to the thing he felt in the center of his chest that he couldn't name. The certainty in a borrowed voice. The specific quality of someone who had done all their accounting and found the number acceptable. The 2 ordinary hands that did not flinch. He will carry it forward. That is what it was given for. He walks out of the chamber. The clouds turn. Somewhere beyond the veil between living and light, for the first time in 45 years, Anakin Skywalker was exactly where he was supposed to be. Let us know what you'd like to see next. The end.